Hey guys, Mr. Middleton here, continuing on with advanced word problems. Um, at the end of this video, you should be able to rewrite a variable in terms of another variable, and you should be able to set up and solve perimeter problems. This lesson is a continuation of the last lesson where we worked on rewriting a variable using an algebraic expression containing another variable. Algebraic. Okay. Remember, the goal of this is to change an equation from having two or more variables into an equation containing only one variable in order to solve. Remember, at this point, we can't solve equations, and we really will never be able to solve one equation if it has two variables in it. So what we're going to try to do is, instead of saying, oh, we have two variables, can't solve it, we're going to try to see how do these two variables relate to each other so that we can solve this problem. Remember or recall that the perimeter measures the distance around an object, or outside of an object. Let's say outside. I should say around. It is found by adding up all the side lengths. So the equation for finding the perimeter of a rectangle is P equals L plus W plus L plus W. So L plus W plus L plus W, adding all four sides. Or you can say P equals 2L plus 2W. Alright, and that's just by adding your like terms together. So now let's jump into an example. The length of a rectangle is 6 inches more than its width. The perimeter of this rectangle is 24 inches. Find the dimensions of this rectangle. It is a good idea to draw and label a picture representing the situation. Label. Okay. Draw and label. So, they tell me it's a rectangle. Draw the rectangle. Okay. So we have length, we have width, all that good stuff. Length, width, length. Okay. Alright. They tell us that the perimeter is 24. There's not a really nice way to write that on the outside. I'm going to write it on the inside, like 24 here. Okay, but I know it's talking about perimeter. Alright, so if we set this problem up right now as we have it, we would say 2L plus 2W equals 24. And we're in the situation that we talked about with the consecutive integer problems, and we talked about it already really at the beginning of these notes. Now we can't solve this problem because we have two variables, L and W. Okay, so we do have to look for the relationship to see how do these two relate to each other. And the relationship between the length and the width is that the length is 6 inches more than the width. And so we can use this information to help us rewrite our variable in terms of another. And I like to set it up like this. Length equals width equals. So what they tell us is that the length is 6 inches more than the width. So length is equals 6 inches more than the width. How can we write that? Well, 6 inches more than the width. We already know that width for us is W. 6 more than that means plus 6. W plus 6. That's how we can write the length. Okay. And so, this is good for us because now, instead of writing L, we can write W plus 6. If I do that up here, 2W plus 6 plus, because that's the only thing that's changed in our equation. L's changed, but W is fine. And now we have an equation that we can solve. And how do I know that I can solve this equation? Well, I have just one variable, W. It's written a couple times, but I only have one of them. And so I can solve that one. So our equation now becomes 2W plus 6 plus 2W equals 24. And now we can solve this. Okay, distribute 2W plus 12 by distributing here, plus 2W equals 24. I'll add my like terms together now. 2W plus 2W is 4W plus 12 equals 24. Don't want to write on my words, I'm going to write over here. Now I'll have, I'll subtract from 12 from both sides, so 4w will equal 12, and then divide by 4, and so w equals 3. And so now I've solved for my width. My width is w. And I can solve for my length as well. I can solve for my length because I know that my length is, as I try to set this up, is 6 more than the width. So since the width is 9, length is, or sorry, since the width is 6, 3 plus 6 is 9. Alright, so some common confusions on this type of problem is, well, what do I do with w? In the relation sentence where they say the length is 6 inches more than the width, you're using w to establish, or to find your length. And you're saying this means width, right? So w is just w in this problem. You don't have to define that in terms of another variable because we're using that one. It would be okay if we just had one variable, and that's what we came to having just one variable. Okay, so keep it there, use it in the equation. Alright, let's flip to the back. Example, this next example says the width of a rectangle is 2 centimeters less than its length. If the perimeter of the rectangle is 56 centimeters, what is the width of the rectangle? Okay, notice that this problem is only asking for the width. Okay, once you find this information, you can stop. Okay, you don't have to find the length. Now, sometimes you might want to find the length so you can plug it back in to check to see if you're right with the width. But if you're finished in the end of your test, you don't have very much time, then you can stop there and come back to it. Alright, well, let's go into solving this problem. So we have a rectangle problem. Boom, I'm going to draw my rectangle. Length, width, length, width. Alright. And they tell us that the perimeter is 56 inches, or centimeters. What is the width of this rectangle? So, they tell us that the width of a rectangle is 2 centimeters less than its length. Again, we won't be able to just set up this problem 2L plus 2W equals 56 and solve it because we have too many variables. But since they gave us that the width, W, is 2 centimeters less than its length, I can write that as L minus 2. 2 centimeters less than the width, the length. And now I can rewrite this equation. 2L plus 2, and instead of using W, I'm going to use L minus 2 equals 56. That's my equation. Let's use L minus 2 equals 56. And now I'm going to solve it to see what my width is. So I plug it in, 2L plus 2L minus 4 equals 56. Add my like terms, 4L minus 4 equals 56. 4L, I'm going to add 4 to both sides, equals 60. And so that gives me L is 15 after I divide both sides by 4. Alright, so my length is 15. Do they care? No. The question at the beginning asks us to find the width of this rectangle. Okay, and that's usually what they'll do. If they only ask you for one, chances are you're going to be finding that 1 second. So the width of this rectangle is 2 less than the length. Our length is 15. Right, we said width is L minus 2. So 15 minus 2, W equals 13. Our width is 13 centimeters. Alright. One last problem. Let's go for it. The length of a rectangular garden is 3 yards more than twice its width. The perimeter of the garden is 36 yards. What are the dimensions of the garden? So dimensions means length and width. So we have a problem, rectangular garden, rectangle. Okay. They tell us that the perimeter is 36 yards, 36 yards. And we got length, width, length, width. Okay. And the perimeter garden is 36. The length of the rectangular garden is 3 yards more than twice the width. So we know we could do 2L plus 2W equals 36. Length, where can I write this? Length is 3 yards more than twice the width. So twice the width and 3 more than that. So now, instead of using L, I'm going to use 2 and then 2W plus 3 plus 2W equals 36. And here's the reason. Remember, we cannot solve an equation with two variables. L and W, can't use it. We have to find a way to rewrite one of those so that it uses the other one. Okay, or something totally completely different. So now we have our equation 2W plus 3 plus 2W equals 36. Alright, and as we solve it, I'll just solve it down here since there's a lot of space. We get 4W plus 6 as we're distributing that, plus 2W equals 36. So add my like terms together, that gives me 6W plus 6 equals 36. And now I'm just solving. Subtract 6 from both sides, 6W equals 30. Divide both sides by 6, W equals 5. So I know that my width is 5. Found that first. And now I got to use that to find my length. And I know that my length should be 3 more than twice my width. So L equals 2W plus 3. So 2 times 5 plus 3. That's 10 plus 3. Oops, not 13. 10 plus 3. And that's 13. So my length is 13. And I can always go back to see if it works out. 5 plus 5 plus 13 plus 13. So 13 plus 13 is 26. Plus 10 is 36. Works out. Alright. So, by now you should be able to write a variable in terms of another variable and set up and solve perimeter problems. Alright. See ya.